we lead in talent broadly around the world. I don't think there's any country, but most countries don't even come close in terms of what India could offer from a talent point of view.
Thank you, Mr. Nambiar, for taking the time to have this conversation with us. Um, we have been really excited and looking forward to have this chat. Since we have a lot of ground to cover, let's get started. We'll start by addressing the elephant in the room. So, how will the US tariffs affect Indian IT? Is there cause for serious worry? Which areas could be hit hardest, and how can the industry recover?
John, look, tariffs certainly will have an impact on the global trade, global economy. We've already started seeing some of the impact broadly, but our position is that while tariff may disrupt goods movement directly, but they don't really obstruct the flow of talent or IP, or to great extent the digital services, areas where I think India holds a very sustainable advantage at this point in time. Well, that could change, but I think at this point in time, we don't see much of an impact on this part of the work that we do. Most of the multinationals are seeking to sort of de-risk and diversify their supply chain, and are finding India to be a decent alternative at this point in time, not just from a cost perspective, but also from a capability and a governance standpoint, which is I thought very very good for India. And this is also very evident, and you look at our industry, we look at the steady pace of how the GCs have expanded despite the tariff in the last few days, a few weeks, etc. We've expanded through, certainly through 2024, and when you look at 2025, we haven't seen that slowing down significantly. So that's a good news. This also reflects our sort of the growing confidence of global enterprises, especially those from the US, operating in India as a key hub for talent, innovation, certainly operational excellence and so forth. So I think that's broadly related to our industry. Apologies. So that's related to our industry. But then when you look at the consumer demand, I think this is globally it is expected to soften, especially in the key market, which might translate into a little bit of an extended decision cycles, which also means that there is a what we call it is a discretionary spend might be at risk in some sense, which also might have an indirect impact on all of that we do, including our services, export that we mentioned earlier, saying that we may not have an impact, but in the longer run, if you take this goes on for a while, then you might have a bit of an issue there. So once greater clarity around these policy changes emerges, we know that we are in most countries, and including India, on a discussion on a bilateral trade agreement with the United States. So once that we get a little bit more clarity, then I think you will find that many of these past decisions are expected to resume, especially as the enterprise is trying to reorient their strategies and optimize efficiency and innovation. You'll find that we should be back in action in some sense, right? So, and also when you look at India compared to the other global economies, and then you saw the results which came about over the last quarter. We are in a slightly better spot at this point in time, right? With the IMF forecasting 6.2% growth for India in 2025. Certainly, is supported by the very strong export orders. Look at trade diversification, what we do, not just for the US, but other countries. Not also robust domestic consumption. I think that's also going to drive the key growth driver for the economy as we move forward.
Thank you for saying that, all is not gray and dark. I'll ask you the next question that is, what should the Indian tech sector do to overtake China and the US to particularly become a global leader in artificial intelligence? And what key obstacles stand in the way?
So China is a tough topic, right? I think when you look at you know there are multiple things one engages China with, and I'm sure you're referring to what they've been able to clearly get a very strong position in what happens in artificial intelligence globally. So for us, the argument is less about, can we really beat China or beat China and all of that. I think, you leave that part aside, and then, really the thing which we need to look at closely is, can we move as India move fast enough and define an AI and a very good, strong, deep tech, artificial intelligence, generative AI, agentic AI, kind of an identity on our own. And recently you saw some news items where some of our, not just necessarily the foundation models, but also the reasoning models have taken a fairly significant role in defining what India's position is going to be in the broader AI. So, much like how we were able to do a very or a build, we were also late to the SaaS party, if you may, but then we were able to build a decent and a unique success story around software as a service, in the last few years, and this is globally known as well. So I think there is clearly an opportunity, and then the window is not too long, but I think so. Our strength has historically been very ecosystem driven. So we don't necessarily do one or the other, but we need to build a broader ecosystem. Our needs are vast and very diverse. When you look at our population base, you see the diversity exist economically, everywhere, every other dimension, right? So this creates a lot of space for multiple type of innovation to coexist. We are leaders in frugal innovation, right? As you saw in many of those innovations that we saw coming out of India, not enough, but I think necessarily, not, we need to sort of do more of that as well. So then when you look at the technology space, especially what we call it as deep tech, which includes, in the AI, quantum, cybersecurity area, our emphasis on cutting edge innovation and, truly technological leadership is very, very important for driving the growth for India. So it's not just about what what the technology sector is growing, but I think for India to grow our economy, or for that matter, any large economy to grow, this is now going to be interesting that there's a technology piece in every sector. Whether you talk about healthcare, you talk about financial services, you're talking about manufacturing, it'll all be technology driven, which means that there is so much push from a technology point of view in getting some of this done. However, if you really want to unlock the full potential, this will require urgent action on key challenges, right? As you mentioned as well, access to patient capital, streamlining regulatory bottlenecks, definitely in our area, but also in other sectors like biotech, aerospace, etc., where innovation can't really wait for the policy to catch up, right? I think we were slightly blessed as an industry. We have less of those hurdles, and I think we have had extremely good working relationship with the government to clear some of those bottlenecks. I think, but there are bottlenecks in other sectors which are much stronger in some sense, and equally critical would be the infrastructure, R&D access. Even when you look at AI as a broad entity, do we have affordable compute, shared labs, what is required, access to data. I think the government is doing a lot in terms of all of these areas, but we need to keep doing it, doubling down, and then ensuring that we must strengthen our research and commercialization pipeline by ensuring that there's a lot of cross-disciplinary talent. We support the product innovation, and this is probably the only way for us to get there.
Great. So my next question is, last week, Mary Meeker came out with, I think it's after a gap of almost 5 years that she came out with a report in which it's on, I don't know if you're aware of that, you must be, trends in artificial intelligence. And in that, one thing that struck was that Indians are among the top users of AI across not only on ChatGPT, but also I think it refers to even DeepSeek, China's DeepSeek. So, since Indians seem to have a voracious appetite for AI, my next question is on, as AI adoption accelerates, what regulatory and security challenges do companies face, specifically IT companies, and how are these evolving?
So I am not aware of the specific report that you mentioned, but I do agree with you that We are adopting AI in much faster clip than many of the other countries. We are one of the biggest users in, even in the tech ecosystem. Some platforms like GitHub and so on and so forth. I think India would fare very, very high in terms of the usage itself. Leveraging of publicly available LLMs like DeepSeek. I mentioned an example yesterday. One of our own companies have been able to build a reasoning model on top of an LLM. It's doing well. So, you know, you asked about regulatory and quite honestly the challenges that you need to do, and I believe that the some of that is also, you talked about security challenges. There's a huge discussion around two areas. One is, how do you make sure that we have right level of cybersecurity for artificial intelligence based systems and whatever. Cybersecurity for AI becomes a topic. The other end, AI for cybersecurity. What I mean is, how do you deploy AI to make the cybersecurity even better, right? So those are two different topics. One is, of course, ensuring that everything that we build around AI has the right level of security. The other end would be, how do you make sure that we are able to incorporate some of the AI capabilities into cybersecurity so that it can be more effective overall. Now, excuse me, effective and truly responsible implementation is going to be very critical for the organizations when they start to navigate the complexities of large scale AI adoption. As I mentioned, from all the way from data security to regulatory compliance, this is going to be an important piece. And then when you look at how do you get the large companies to act a little differently from the smaller companies. The large enterprises should invest on, for example, data standardization. They need to forge strategic partnership to accelerate there are lots of companies who do POC, proof of concepts. But how do you take them into production? How do you make sure that you are implementing them into real life to solve real life problems? All of that is going to be very important. A very good balance between efficiency driven versus innovation led use cases, because you'll find that you'll have to compete with these two in all the while, and ensuring that you're also able to make managing the risk in a very embedded sustainability into their broader agenda. Companies, organizations like Nasscom, for example. So we have done a little bit of our own what we call responsible AI positioning, and we have written some papers and published a lot of handbooks for companies to follow. It'll give you some sense of why you can't go crazy with AI, and you got to be careful when you're dealing with some of this technology, and not let that go out of hand. The smaller companies, on the other hand, they should start with obviously contextually ensuring that you have high impact use cases. You tend to collaborate with the tech SMEs. There are lots of tech SMEs today, and we talked about deep tech ecosystem. We also have a thriving startup ecosystem, which is supporting not just small companies but across the board. How do you make sure that you're able to leverage all of that and truly tap into the peer network to navigate some of these common challenges? Organizations such as Nasscom will be very handy in terms of guiding them through this process, because it's not going to be easy to traverse on your own. How do you make sure that we are able to support some of that? So I think when you look at India with its sort of a macro stability that we spoke about, we talked about, we are despite all the issues that you see, we are better placed as or as a country today than several others around us. So which means that we have enough digital depth, and we have a little bit of a diplomatic neutrality, as we have a very rare window for us to lead. So we have to sort of ensure that we are able to leverage that. But realizing this potential will depend on how fast we can traverse this, right?
As you say that India is better positioned than its peers when it comes to leveraging technology. There comes our another question that the critical skills gaps that is there in Indian IT today. So how can companies and academia bridge them?
This is a very good question, and unfortunately, this is also the question. If you 10 years ago, if you were to have this interview, we would have still had the same question, but for a different type of skills, right? So it kind of, unfortunately, we have not been able to solve that completely. We are better off than many countries, as you rightly mentioned, but the gaps still do exist for the right set of skills. And you talked about how do you use academia to bridge them. This has been a challenge. So I'm of the opinion that this is a sort of a tripartite problem, which is you have government, you have the industry, and the academia. So three legs of the stool. How do you all of you collaborate in some sense? And this collaborative approach should involve, as I said, industry, academia, and the government, and ensuring that there's a successful strategy, and truly work on tech skill development and availability as well, right? So industry has a role to play, the government has a role to play, and the academia will have to play a role. This of course includes working with multiple universities and the broader academia to integrate some of the foundational technology and then some of the AI coursework into the curriculum, whether it is degree, diploma programs, whatever it is, but also to provide some advanced, training. And then I think the industry can also really work with the industry, with the academia in terms of running some of the hackathon, provide some kind of internship support, and then take it to the next level in terms of IP creation, etc., where the government can also come in with some level of funding. Now, when the technology is becoming mainstream, you'll find that some of the niche skills in the area. I mean, you mentioned about AI, machine learning, cybersecurity, which we talked about a little bit earlier. This will all become cornerstones of success. So if we lead in talent broadly around the world. I don't think there's any country, but most countries don't even come close in terms of what India could offer from a talent point of view. But again, I think we have a huge potential to unlock, and we can do that only when you make sure that we have this tripartite thing working very well, and then we can look at some of the tech ecosystem, which and then make them industry ready to ensure that the foundational skills across, whether it's cloud, cybersecurity, software engineering to begin with. Data is again a big area where we believe that there's so much of an opportunity. All of that will happen. Now, some of the new age capabilities, which is probably a bigger challenge for the university to catch up. I think that we as an industry body we have a role as well to ensure that we are able to work with them, and then they see this opportunity as good as what we see, because one of the things which some of us worry about the agentic AI and generative AI is also the ability for it to kind of replace some of the foundational programming capability which the universities may be focused on today. So they need to sort of pivot into what is required for the new age and what is required for the future. So yeah, so lot to be done, and I believe that while we will work with the academia to build some of this, there is also the other side where the industry itself is doing a lot to make sure that we are reskilling people, because we have 5.9 million people employed in the industry at this point in time. So most IT companies have already, Indian IT companies, of course, I meant, they've started training their own workforce on all of these new age capabilities. For instance, when you purely look at AI, generative AI training, they've broadly skilled or reskilled over 1 million professionals across the workforce pyramid. We talked about 5.9 million, out of which 1 million is today totally advanced, trained in these advanced capabilities. And some of the publicly listed companies, and from the data that is available to us, they've trained 73,000 people in advanced AI skills. The first million was more about knowledge of AI, what they do, etc. But the 73,000 is truly skilled in people who can actually go out and implement AI, at scale, and they've also been working on getting the right set of certifications, and ensuring that we have an ecosystem which is a lot more ready to face the capabilities which are required in the future.
Yes. Would you like to share Nasscom's efforts in reskilling some of the IT professionals right now, along with the industries, and working with educational institutes in India on the same front?
No, so it's very similar to what I said before, right? I think when you look at what we do have. I'm sure you're familiar with. We have a separate group called SSC and FSP, which is a joint initiative between the government and Nasscom, and we've also worked with constantly. We work with universities, the governments who actually need some of this capability. Yesterday was a great example where we signed an MOU with the Uttarakhand government to make sure that we're able to skill the a fairly large number of people. I don't know the exact number. I couldn't go there because I wasn't feeling too well, so I missed going to there alone. But I think with the chief minister, we signed an MOU to make sure that we are able to skill the right folks within the state. So as I mentioned, one is the large scale skilling which is required, which is where the SSC, FSP type of arrangements will work beautifully. So we work with state governments, we work with to some extent some of the departments. So that will go on, but remember, this will be getting people to do decent set of skills, but at a much larger volume. That may or may not be what we need for people to truly build some AI system. So remember I talked about two numbers. And first I talked about a larger number, which all of us work on and ensure that people are generally aware of what's happening in AI, ability for them to figure out what is required to integrate prompt engineering. So, but then there's also a set of capabilities you need for people to truly be super special in terms of what they do, which requires higher order capabilities, which is what I believe that the industry is equipped today to skill or reskill some of the people who are already if you're an architect, how do you pivot into an AI architect? This process is not necessarily something which can be done in a university. So it has to be done at an industry setup in some sense. So that will work as well for us as we move forward.